Beginning of Parashat Beha'alotcha, the commentaries explain, as they do many times, what is the connection between the previous parasha and the beginning of this parasha. In the previous parasha, there is a very long and detailed account of the Nesi'im, the Korbanot, the sacrifices that the various heads of the tribes, the leaders, brought. And here, in the very beginning of Parashat Beha'alotcha, Aaron HaKohen is given a job to light the Menorah. What is the semichut and what is the connection between the two? So they tell us that Aaron felt very bad. He was not given the job. He was not allowed to participate. He was not involved when the Nesi'im, each one, brought his Korban. Not only that, his whole tribe was left out. So he felt very bad. And as a result of that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him, you know what, don't feel so bad. The job that you will receive, the task that you will have, is much more important than the job that they had, that they were given. So don't feel so bad. So we need to understand what is such a great man like Aaron feeling bad about. Doesn't he know that things are handled properly by Hashem? He knows what he's doing. There's definitely a heshbon, there's a reason for everything. What do you actually feel bad about? And what is the message? What is the message that the rabbis are trying to communicate to us by telling this whole episode to us? By the way, Aaron felt bad. You should know about it. What's the message in these words? So we also need to understand, why did Aaron receive this job of the Hanukkah, of the Menorah, lighting the Menorah? What does lighting the Menorah have to do with anything? Why is that so important? What does it symbolize? And later on, there's another question. If you read the Pesukim, you will see that after he's given the job, it says, Vayas ken Aharon el mul pnei menorah. He did as he was instructed. Would anybody think otherwise, that he would do differently? That he would hesitate? It wasn't difficult. So what's the Hidush? What is being emphasized over here? What are we being told? That Aaron did exactly as he was told. Now, according to the Kabbalah, the Menorah has many sodot, many secrets. Why 7? Why out of gold, pure gold? And we won't get into all the secrets, all the sodot of what the Menorah represents. That could be a whole lecture in itself. What does it symbolize? What is it actually doing? But a little bit we'll cover. One thing is clear, that Aaron HaKohen, in future generations, all the Kohanim HaGdolim, part of their job was La'asot Shalom Ben Yisrael Avinu Shebashamayim, to make peace between Am Yisrael, between the Jewish nation, and our Father in heaven. They had a very big responsibility, a very important job, to atone, amongst other things, through sacrifices, through the incense, the Ktoret. They were doing many, many things. But the Kohen Gadol, amongst other things, had a very important job in his prayers and in his actions, and through the lighting of the Menorah. He basically was beseeching the Almighty for mercy and trying to make peace, that Am Yisrael should be in good terms with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. There should be no division, no separation. And that is what Aaron was doing by lighting the Menorah. But why Aaron? Many of you perhaps were wondering, what's the idea behind lighting candles on Shabbat, for Shabbat? You know, it's the woman's mitzvah, even though a husband, the man, can also light. And the rabbis tell us that there are several ideas to it, but one idea is that there should be shalom in the house. There should be peace. What does light have to do with peace? Well, if the house is properly illuminated, people will not fall down, will not get hurt. Remember, back then when there was no electricity, there was a great need to have light. And if you don't have light on Shabbat, when you're supposed to enjoy the meal, the day, the special day, then you're going to be missing in part of the oneg of the Shabbat, part of the pleasure of Shabbat. So in order for there to be shalom bayit, there should be light in the house. So even though today we have lights in every room, we still light the candle because of what it symbolizes, what Kavod did, and other reasons. Nevertheless, the main reason behind it is that it adds to the shalom of the house. Light somehow symbolizes shalom, whereas darkness, choshech, symbolizes the opposite. It symbolizes balagan, destruction, division. Light symbolizes shalom. So why does Aaron have this job of making shalom, of lighting the menorah, making shalom between Am Yisrael and Avinu Shebashamayim? So I'm going to recall to you the words of Kavod, where Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai asked several of his students to do some research and figure out, of all the midot, tovot, of all the good characteristics that exist in the world, what should one pursue the most? What should he emphasize? After all, you can't do everything. What's the most important midah that one should pursue to develop in himself to become strong in? So each one said something else. I'll just point to the one that the rabbi, that the teacher said is the most important one because it has within it all the midot tavot. If you develop this, if you work on this, you will be able to attain all the other characteristics as well. And which midah is it? Lev tov. A good heart. It's not something that you're born with, even though some people have more of a tendency to do favors for others. Nevertheless, that is part of every Jew's job in this world. Even though we all have a unique mission, we all need to be good and kind to others, develop a good heart. And this should be something that we should focus on, Rabbi Elazar said, the student of Yohanan ben Zakkai. If you focus on this, if you work hard on developing a good heart, memela, in other words, automatically and naturally, you will be able to develop all the other midot that you need to have, and you will fall everything will fall in its right place. In other words, you don't have to go around and work on this and work on that. Work on Lev Tov, and everything will be okay. So the question is, the rabbis don't discuss in Pirkei Avot, well, how you develop a Lev Tov, even though they give us a lot of good advice. How does one develop a good heart? The simple answer to it is by showing echpatiyut to another Jew, by showing that you are concerned for the welfare of another Jew as much as you're concerned for your own welfare. In other words, there are many situations in life where one is challenged, one is given the opportunity to show that he really cares for someone else. Whether it is to go out of your way to help him, whether it's to do him a favor, to lend him some money. And when one works on this, he will develop a lev tov, a good heart, because that is what will come out of all his actions. As the Sefer Hanukkah says, the mitzvot were given to us for a very important reason. Other than the higher reason that only Hashem knows, it is through the action of the mitzvot that we do that our hearts are affected. In other words, we gain something out of it. The mitzvot are for our benefit. They do something for us. By doing certain things, our hearts are affected. And that is, as I explained in the past many times, the significance of giving $1,000, $1 to 1,000 people versus giving $1,000 to one individual. Because you've only done the mitzvah once, and here you're doing it 1,000 times. You know how easier it will be from now on to do tzedakah? You've gotten used to it. You've done it 1,000 times. You've helped 1,000 people too. You've done 1,000 mitzvot. So our hearts are affected by doing something, and especially by doing it many times. So by getting involved with helping people, by showing our concern, we will develop a lev tov. What is perhaps one of the most important ways of showing concern, of echpatiyut for another? I thought of perhaps one of the most important ones being shalom bayit. If one goes out of his way to help a couple who's having trouble, husband and wife, and that's a very big challenge. It's not easy. It's very difficult. And why should you get involved, you might say? I want to stay out of it. There are fights, there may be insults. You know, it can get very, very nasty. And you go out of your way and you work hard. You make many phone calls. You go visit. And this takes away from your time, from your family. It can be very, very difficult and challenging. It can therefore be a tremendous mitzvah and a tremendous sechar. One will be greatly, immensely rewarded if he did, in fact, succeed in making shalom between the two of them. And the same is true between Adam and Chavero, between two individuals who have argued and who are not talking to each other, and you go ahead and succeed in bringing them back together. It's a tremendous mitzvah. It's a very, very big mitzvah, and there's no doubt that this shows very much that one is concerned, ichpat lo, for the welfare of the second individual. Aharon HaKohen very much stood out in this area. He was known for making peace between people. He was known for helping couples restore the peace in the house. Therefore Hashem says, you know what, you're the best man for this job. You're making peace amongst the Jews. You can also make peace benenu leben avinu shebashamayim, between Am Yisrael and the Almighty. After all, you are sincere. You're good at what you do. Your words are effective. And therefore, those same words will be effective when you pray to me. I will answer your prayers too. That is why Aharon is chosen for this job. We talked about lev tov, developing a good heart, developing the caring that one should have for another. It's not easy. And we spoke about one example, the example of making peace between husband and wife. But that is the ultimate. One will not succeed so easily. One will not be able to accomplish this task unless he really shows that he really cares. Words are worthless if you don't really mean what you say. And if you don't try hard enough, you may never know if you would have succeeded had you tried harder enough. There is, however, one other piece of advice that the rabbis tell us that it doesn't appear to be associated to this, but nevertheless I always felt it definitely will help develop a lev tov. And that is the advice that the rabbis give us in Kne lecha chaver. Acquire yourself a friend. When you read this passage in Pirkei Avot, you will see the commentaries that they will explain something of the like, well, it's important to have one individual in this world where you can share all your secrets with, where you can communicate freely and openly, because that takes a big load off your back. If you're able to talk, just by talking, a person already feels better. Dagab belevish yashchena or yasechena, as the rabbis tell us. If you have a worry, just talk it over with someone else. Just the fact that you talk it over, that in itself will alleviate some of your worries, some of that tension, that anxiety that you may have. Having a good friend is very valuable. The Torah says, find that one person, that one individual where you can develop a close relationship, that you will care as much for him as you care about yourself. The rabbis speak very highly about a very strong relationship between two people. But perhaps another idea, an additional idea in this Kne lecha chaver, is not only that he, after hearing you, will be able to give you musar and you will accept it, because this is your best friend. Not only will he be able to alleviate you from your worries, there's more to that. When a person acquires himself a friend, a true friend, he eventually, hopefully, if he's sincere, will want to give the most into this friendship. He will do the most he can to make this relationship a good, solid relationship. This is therefore an opportunity. Friendships, solid friendships, are an opportunity for developing a lev tov. Because this is one individual that hopefully you will be prepared to do everything, whatever it is that he asks you, as long as it's reasonable, obviously. So here is a chance, an individual where you actually will be able to prove yourself. I'm willing to walk 5 miles for him. I'm willing to do this even though it's very difficult, but this is my best friend, right? Not everybody is fortunate to have this kind of a relationship, but they do exist, and it takes a tremendous amount of self-sacrifice and the desire to have something like this. Not everybody even has the desire to have such a close relationship. Some people are even afraid of close relationships. They're always suspicious. They don't want to trust anybody but themselves. Obviously, everybody needs to develop a relationship from a different angle, depending what his worries are. But it is achievable, and it is something beautiful and important. And this will help in developing a lev tov as well. We spoke about friendship. Solid friendships mean selflessness. What's the opposite of selflessness? Selfishness. Somebody who's very, very selfish will have a very hard time making good friends. And not only will he have a hard time making good friends, if he has no friends, could you imagine him trying to make peace between two people? Right? It's impossible. The rabbis tell us that one who gambles is disqualified from being a witness. Pasul le'edut. A gambler, a regular, habitual gambler. Not one who once in a while plays bingo. Right? I'm talking about one who really spends money. He does that all the time. Why would you say he's pasul le'edut? Why can't he be a good witness? Why can't he be a good judge? He's very religious, observant, does everything right, except for this problem that he has. And the answer is very simple. A guy who's not concerned about his money, you think he will be concerned about somebody else's money? He's not concerned about his money. How could he give testimony about, or how could he judge a situation if we're talking about a financial situation? He doesn't even care about money. That's just one idea why this individual is pasul le'edut. One who is selfish. How could we imagine him being successful in telling others what to do as far as getting back together, caring for each other, right? Making peace. You yourself are having are having this problem. So he will not be as effective. So selfishness is the opposite of selflessness, obviously. But how do we get around this problem of selfishness? We just spoke about ideas of how to develop a good heart, but if somebody who's really selfish has to overcome the selfishness to begin with. One way to overcome selfishness is by controlling your ta'avot, your desires. People have different kinds of ta'avot. One typical ta'ava, desire, is food. There are some people who are very much into eating and nashing and having all the goodies in the world. And any opportunity that they see food, they go for it. And this is a problem, because this strengthens their selfishness. How does ta'ava of ochel strengthen one's selfishness? Because he's feeding his body, his ratzonot. This is his desire. This is what he wants for himself, for his body. It's not necessarily going to make him a very selfish person, but it's definitely going to give him a harder time to be selfless. So one way to rid yourself of some of the selfishness is by controlling one's ta'avot. The rabbis tell us, what should one do if he sees that the Torah is having a hard time penetrating his head, no matter how hard he tries? Yitpalel shelo yikansu b'me'av. He should pray that excess food and excess drink should not enter his system. In other words, it could be because of the excess food and drink, because of all these food, the excess food that he's eating, all these ta'avot, that they are giving him a hard time with learning and with absorbing the Torah. So in other words, instead of focusing on praying, Hashem, help me understand your Torah, focus your efforts on praying that the ta'avot should go away, that you should not have all these desires for the food, which may be also giving you a hard time in trying to grasp the Torah. In speaking about the Menorah, getting back to the Menorah, we see that there is a lot of other ideas associated with the lighting of Menorah. One of them is the kevesh. The kevesh is the ramp. One of them is the ramp that Aharon is told to step on in order to light the Menorah. Even though the Menorah was approximately 5 feet tall, give or take, and he was much taller than the Menorah, there was no need for a ramp to light the Menorah. Why is there a mitzvah, therefore, to build a ramp and for Aaron to go on top of the ramp to light the Menorah? Several ideas here too. One is to remind Aaron of how important this mitzvah is. Don't take it lightly. Sometimes we think, oh, this mitzvah is something very simple. No. Even though all you're doing is something very simple and small, just lighting the candles. Don't think of it as something simple. This is a very important mitzvah. And how are we reminding you of this fact? You're going on top of the ramp. You're going up the ladder. You're elevated here. This is a very important mitzvah. Another idea here is that the ner, the light, also represents the Torah. Many parents, unfortunately, communicate to the children, college is much more important than the yeshiva. The college degree is what will bring you kavod in life. That PhD, go for that. That is how people will respect you. And the Torah says, no way. The Torah is what gives one kavod. By going up the kevesh to light the menorah, the Torah is telling us this is what gives kavod to the person performing this mitzvah. Not a profession, not a degree. Torah gives the greatest kavod. Aaron was comforted and made feel good that he has an important job. He was also told that this is an important job also because this will be for many generations to come. This is not like the korbanot of the Nesi'im, a one-time thing. This job that you will have and your children and your descendants will be for all generations. That is during the time, however, that we have a Bet HaMikdash. What will be after the Bet HaMikdash is destroyed? Unfortunately, the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed. How will that mitzvah continue? Anybody want to guess? Huh? No, that mitzvah of lighting the menorah on Hanukkah. So in the mitzvah of lighting the menorah, there is a remez, the commentaries explain, that don't worry, this will be a tremendous mitzvah. It will be for all generations until Mashiach comes, because it's through your children that the miracle of Hanukkah will take place. These are just additional ideas of how Aaron was made to feel good, that don't worry, you have a very important job, a job that will last for all generations to come. Now we're ready to go into the personality of Aaron. Even though we spoke a little bit about what he did and why he got this job, we need to answer the other question we asked. And what was the other question? Why does the Torah emphasize he did as he was instructed? That's obvious. Now the Torah wants to give us a little bit of a description of who this man was. A little bit about his personality. The fact that he did not change, the fact that he did as he was told, is an important lesson in itlahavut, in doing mitzvot with excitement, as opposed to doing it out of routine. Aharon, even though was doing something routine, this was all the time. What could happen after a while? A person gets into a routine, and he does it, therefore, without excitement. Excitement, usually you do it the first time. The first time you're all excited. The Torah is emphasizing here a very important point. Even though he did this many times, it was always with the same excitement. And that's not easy, to always approach the mitzvah and do it with excitement. I'm about to do the mitzvah of Hashem, to do it with excitement. And that is a great merit to Aaron, that he was able to perform this mitzvah. Shelo shina, every single time he did it with the same excitement. No routine. You know, there are some individuals who do mitzvot, who pray, who come to the Bet HaKnesset, when their financial situation is okay. They have parnasah, they don't have any worries. Then they go to the Bet HaKnesset, they do certain mitzvot. But when things turn bad, they drop everything. Mitzvot have to be performed at all times, regardless of one's situation. Not only regardless of one's situation, regardless of one's mood. Sometimes we're not in a very good mood. we woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Is that what they say in English? Yeah, and you really don't feel good. Or you had a hard day. Is because of your mood, you're not going to go and pray Arvit? Because you're upset at your wife, because you're upset at your husband, you're not going to do something? You're upset? So what does that have to do with the mitzvah? But you know what? We're only humans. No, really, we're humans. And our moods affect us. And they affect us sometimes immensely. And we may not feel like Elanu Cheshek. We don't have any more the strength or the desire or the enthusiasm to do the same thing that we did yesterday. We feel differently. Aaron, regardless of his mood, and Aaron had moods too, I'm sure. He was human just like all of us. Right? I'm sure he had mood, he had situations, and there were some very, very tragic situations. He lost 2 of his children. That's very challenging. Let's see you perform a mitzvah on that day. Many people have complaints to Hashem, and they stop doing certain things. Some women who came here from Europe, they threw out their wigs from the boat as they were approaching Ellis Island, is it? Or wherever it is they came off. Yeah, their wigs. That's it. We're in America. Well, yeah. Well, that's it.
Rabbi, but Aaron was alone, and he didn't have to do any positive mitzvot.
Right, obviously, on that time it was different. But nevertheless, the point is, Shelo Shina. Vayas Kina Aaron, he was always the same, regardless of the moods, regardless of the situations. The mitzvah was a mitzvah to be performed at all times. The rabbis very much cautioned us to be careful not to get too much into a routine. Routine is very, very dangerous. They tell us, for example, I'll give you various examples. Al ta'aset filatcha keva. In Pirkei Avot, the rabbis tell us, be careful that your prayer should not be routine. That is an excellent example because a prayer is 3 times a day, every day of the year, every day of our life. That can easily become a routine. And what happens when prayer becomes a routine? It's just words, lip service. They said, the rabbis tell us, Al ta'at filatcha keva. Be careful with prayer because prayer is so powerful. It should be tahanunim. It should be begging for mercy from Hashem. This is an excellent opportunity that you have 3 times a day for a few minutes to speak to the Almighty and ask Him. Chaval, if you don't use it correctly, if you just rush through it, if you don't understand what you're saying, if you don't mean what you say, it's no good. So be careful because that is one area that can easily become routine. And it's chaval. In other words, that would be a mistake. That would be a loss. Here they don't tell us how dangerous it is, but I'm telling you that too. That it's not healthy, and it could be dangerous too. Yes?
Does it say words? Do you have any extra words or whatever it is filled in?
Yeah, whatever comes to your mind. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Right. That is why some people, even when they say the Amidah, even though they know it by heart, they say it from the inside. Reading it, not closing your eyes, saying it by heart, even though you know it by heart, because reading it from the inside helps the kavanah. Helps you better focus on the words you're saying. A lot of people close their eyes because they claim that closing their eyes helps them better with the kavanah because they're not distracted. So the 2 methods of prayer in the Amidah are acceptable. You should know yourself.
The challenge isn't necessarily always the consistency of coming 3 times. It's to be coming with simcha 3 times a day. That's the hard part. Sometimes you're tired. You have problems at home. To come 3 times with simcha is a challenge.
Right. Simcha, joy, is another very big challenge, a very difficult challenge. Yeah. Here we're not talking about just simcha. We're talking about the proper kavanah, and that there should be no routine in what you're doing, but you should be doing it out of excitement and understanding what you're doing. The Rambam tells us something incredible. I mean, there's a lot of logic to it, but nevertheless it's very powerful. He says, whoever used to learn Torah and left it, dropped it, and became interested in something else, on him it is said, Kidvar Hashem Baza. On him we can say the pasuk that he has despised the words of the Almighty. Because he was once attached to the Torah, close to the Torah, he's dropped it, and he has shown more interest in something else. So when you show more interest in something else, it's a tremendous Hilul Hashem. It shows that you are mevazeh. Indirectly at least, it shows that you are mevazeh, that you are belittling the words of Hashem. So I once explained, how did this happen? The Rambam tells us that after the fact, he's called it Dvar Hashem Baza. After the fact, after he has left the Torah, this action is called Dvar Hashem Baza. In other words, he belittled the words of the Torah. So I explained, how did this happen to begin with is important. Dvar Hashem Baza already existed from the very beginning. In order for him to have let go the Torah, it must be that earlier on, at some point, he was already looking down. He was already getting into either a routine And therefore, because what is routine? Routine means you don't give the proper kavod and respect to whatever it is you're doing. You rush through it. So at some point before, he must have been belittling it. This is not as important. This is more important. And that is what prompted him, or at least gave him the courage to drop it completely. Just another idea of how routine, the lack of excitement, lends to belittling something, not showing as much importance to it. And therefore, when you don't show importance to something like Torah, it's called baza. In other words, a bizayon. You're putting it to shame and disgrace. And that is exactly what Yeshayahu Navi warns about. Yeshayahu Navi communicates to us how Hashem is upset at us. Vayomer Adonai ya'an ki nigash ha'am hazeh bepivu v'sfatav ki beduni. Because since this nation came to me, approached me with their mouth and with the lips, that is how they gave me kavod. But in reality, libor rihak mimeni. But their heart is far from me. But their fear for me was just mitzvat anashim melumada. All it was mitzvat anashim melumada. In other words, routine. A mitzvah that people are aware of, have learned, and they do it out of routine. In other words, where is their true prayer, their true supplications? Their heart is far from me. They're just giving me kavod with peh and sfatayim, with mouth and lips. And Hashem knows. Where is the true kavod? Yes.
You said earlier about Ellis Island and people.
Yeah.
These people that came out and gave up the Tefillah, gave up Shabbat. These Shabbat, is it Yirat Shamayim?
Yeah, I've spoken about this problem in the past quite a few times. Remember, just like a Baal Teshuvah does not become one overnight. It takes him a little bit of time. It goes through various stages until he adapts his new way of life, until he embraces the Torah fully. The same is true with one who has let go completely. You don't let go in one night the entire Torah. I mean, that is a very, very extreme situation. Somebody was observant and now he's not completely. It can't happen. As I said before, he first lets go of his kippah, he lets go of the Torah, later he does something else, or he went through a tremendous shock, like many of these people did, the Holocaust, and they let go of whatever little tradition they had. But even then, even those who went through this shock, this tremendous storm, their root system was very weak to begin with. Had they had a proper, strong root system at home, good example of parents who were devoted to Judaism at all costs, then the kids would not have easily abandoned Judaism. Because a child does what he sees at home. Depending how committed the parents were, that is how the children will be. But there are exceptions. There are all kinds of children, depending on the circumstances that they're in. So therefore, we can't judge anybody because we don't know what we would do if we would be in their shoes. But obviously, when somebody is not very committed, when he does things out of routine, without excitement, it's easier for him to eventually, gradually let go of it. And that is why this is so dangerous, to do things out of routine, which means you don't respect it. You don't care about it so much. And eventually you may drop it altogether. But if you recognize something for what it really is, you do it out of excitement, you're happy about it, not only will you continue to do it, it will be contagious. Your children and perhaps others around you will also get something from it. That is perhaps also why we break a cup, a glass, I should say, underneath the chuppah. Everybody familiar with this tradition? The chuppah is the happiest day of one's life. The moment that he's finally met his soulmate, his or her soulmate, and it should be, I think it is the happiest day in one's life. At the height of simcha that we have, the rabbis tell us, don't forget that your simcha is really incomplete as long as my simcha, Hashem says, is not there, because my home is destroyed. You're going to have a home, I don't have one yet. At that moment, at the height of the simcha of a husband and wife, of a chatan v'kala, we remember the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. Why? Why do we need to remember that moment? Why shouldn't we remember it every day? We remember it Tisha B'Av, we remember it Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, we somewhat remember it Asara B'Tevet as well. There are times during the year that we remember the Churban. However, it is important at the height of the Simcha to remember it. Because many years have gone by. Many years have transpired. Many of us are far removed from Israel because we live thousands of miles away. We don't see the Kotel. We don't see that mosque that would bring tears to many of us if we see it, especially the first time. Right? It's very, very depressing and sad to see it, but we're not there. So therefore, the rabbis tell us, if you don't think about it, if you don't do something about it, you're going to forget about it. There will be no evel, How many people today do you know are very, very sad on Tisha B'Av here in Los Angeles? They fast, Baruch Hashem. They're observant. They don't put on leather shoes. They don't take a shower or bath, even if it's a humid hot day. They're very careful. But are they very, very sad? Do they really ask Hashem when they say the kinot or when they say Echa, whatever it is, depending on your custom? Do they really say sincerely, Hashem, we're waiting for the Geulah? There's a lack of sincerity. Why is there a lack of sincerity? Because they got used to it. It's routine. Every 9th of Av, every single year, we will say this, and we won't be so sad, unfortunately. You have to force yourself to cry if you need to, because you have to get into it, into the spirit of what happened in Tisha B'Av. Just 100 years ago, I'm sure any one of you who would visit a shtetl, a small village in town in Eastern Europe, or even in Morocco, in Egypt, you go 100 years ago, you would go into a shul in Tisha B'Av, you would see them, most of them would be crying. Yeah, they would. What happened? Why? Anybody want to guess what happened just in 100 years? I mean, if there was a routine, why did if there was a routine, then why did they cry? If there was no routine, then why is there one now in 100 years? I spoke about it, I think, in other lectures or in the video, perhaps. Yeah. No, just 100 years ago. Everything.
Too much Gashmis today, right?
Yeah, very simple. By Shman Yeshurun Vayiv'at. Torah says when the Jew or anybody, when they become very wealthy and fat, and they become arrogant, therefore they become less sensitive, and of course there's nothing for them to be sad about. And I always talk about this other point. Imagine if Israel today had no problems with the enemy, the economy was great, and there was enough rain, the Kinneret was always full. What do you think would happen? What would you think? No. What do you think would happen to the secular Jew? I should add, he would become even more secular.
If that's possible.
Sure. Why? Things are beautiful. Things are going fine. They get the message that they don't have to keep anything. They're not getting hit over the back. Everything is fine. The reason why we're having trouble is because Hashem is trying to send us messages that what you're doing is wrong. There's something wrong with what you're doing. Change. Some people are getting the message. That is why we have a lot of Balei Tshuva. They see life is empty. All of the vanities are not worth pursuing. Akol Shek, everything's a bunch of lies. And Baruch Hashem, they have a little bit of intelligence. The others either do not see, or they don't want to admit it. So anyway, the way we got into this is by talking about routine. We have to be very careful not doing things as a result of routine. We break the glass underneath the chuppah at the height of our simcha, when we're so happy. Don't forget. Don't forget Yerushalayim. Don't forget it. It's very easy to forget. Now, when you're very, very happy, it's when you more readily forget about the troubles of others. How could you forget about Yerushalayim? Therefore, the rabbis tell us, force yourself not to forget. Break something. When we gave a shiur about Tameh Mitzvot, the reason for the Mitzvot, one of the Mitzvot we spoke about was the Isur, or the law, I should say, for the Kohanim not to exit the Bet HaMikdash during the time of the Avodah. And one of the reasons for that mitzvah is that when one is involved in the Avodah, imagine leaving for a moment, taking a break. What does that show? It shows a zilzul, or lack of respect for what you're doing. You're so involved right now in an important job. How could you take a break from this? The Kohanim were therefore prohibited from leaving the Bet HaMikdash while the Avodah was going on. Otherwise, try to think, why should there be such a mitzvah? Only because eventually it will lead to a lack of kavod, lack of respect for the mitzvah. This is so important, you can't take a break right now. So this idea is being strengthened in our mind. Be careful from doing something that will take away from the kavod of a mitzvah. That is why the Rambam tells us in Pirkei Avot, Hamafsik mi mishnato, whoever is learning Torah, Mishnah, and he interrupts his learning and he says, oh, what a beautiful field. Look at the flowers blooming. He deserves to die. As though he deserves to die. What did he do wrong? He's admiring the beauty of the world. Hashem, Hashem, you have a beautiful world. Yeah, but you were just learning. Don't interrupt your learning. When you interrupt your learning to do something less important, it's taking away from the kavod of the Torah. And that you cannot do. That's the idea behind this Mishnah. Don't interrupt your Torah. And this is a challenge to many in school. And I remember when I went through high school, kids would always want to interrupt their teacher, their Rebbe, to speak about everything but the Torah. So what do you think of this politician? Who are you going to vote for? And what is going on in Israel? What does it have to do with the Gemara, with the Tosafot, with what we're learning right now? But the Yetzer Hara tries to take away one's attention from what's really important to talk about something which is totally not important. One has to be careful with that. And that leads us to another very, very important area, talking in the middle of davening, talking in the middle of the Amidah, especially in the middle of Shmonesra, or during the Kriyat Torah when one is reading the Torah. Why is it asur? Why is it prohibited? I'd like to say something, because it shows zilzul, a lack of respect for what you're doing. If you're willing to talk to somebody while you're talking to Hashem, that's tremendous zilzul, lack of kavod, lack of respect. Therefore it's prohibited for the same reason. What is that?
Sorry, around the shots.
Yeah, in those parts that it's prohibited. Okay, so right now we've covered a certain portion of Parashat Beha'alotcha. I'm going now to the second part. The second part is a fascinating part. If you read Parashat Beha'alotcha carefully, you will find that there are arba kvutzot, 4 groups of individuals in this parasha. Let me describe to you briefly each one. Group number 1 are those who were unclean, and because they were unclean, they could not bring the Korban Pesach. And they complained to Hashem, Lama nigara, why should we be left out? We want to bring the Korban Pesach too. Okay? So they wanted another chance to bring the Korban Pesach, and because of them, Hashem says yes. If they have a good excuse, they were unclean because they were burying somebody, that is how they became unclean. There's something called Pesach Sheni. Fine. Okay, that's one group. Second group, the Zekenim. The Zekenim, they were the elders, that Hashem says, I want these group of people to help you, Moshe. Take some of the load off you. These are special people. They are the Zekenim, the elders. They will help you out. Who were these elders? They were the Shotrim. They were the policemen in Egypt. Paro appointed Jewish policemen to make sure the Jews get the work done. And who were they? These policemen? They were very, very special people. Because even though their job was to make sure the work gets done, they did not hit their brethren. They were very careful. They were very sensitive. And because of that, Hashem says, they will be the Zekenim. I choose these Shotrim, who are in a very, very uncomfortable, awkward situation. Nevertheless, they control themselves very well, and they showed compassion for their brothers. They will be the Zekenim. This is the second group of people that stand out in the parasha. These 2 groups are positive. Now we have 2 negative groups. Group 1 of the negatives, Hamit Onenim. You had a bunch of Erev Rav, a bunch of individuals who started complaining about nothing. You know, some people just complain for no real reason, or we had them in the Midbar too, in the desert, complaining. And then you had a 4th group of troublemakers called the Asafsuf. Itavu Ta'ava. They wanted to eat meat. Zacharnu Zadaka. We remember the fish in Egypt. We remember the onions. A bunch of lies. It was not true. They did not have all that they were saying they had in Egypt. Let's go back to Egypt. A bunch of troublemakers. Negative people. It's interesting here because you have 2 positive versus 2 negative. The 2 positive groups, what are they showing? A desire to do good, a desire to do a mitzvah. And here these 2 other groups, they are thinking of themselves, not thinking of others. Very, very opposite groups. Just like to speak briefly, mostly about the first group. The first group complains, why should they be left out? What do you mean, why should you be left out? You were unclean, and don't worry about it. If you're unclean, you're patur, you're exempt. No, they feel bad. Why do they feel bad? And why does the Torah have to tell this to us? There's a group that feels bad, and because of that there's a Korban Pesach Sheni. Why should there be a Pesach Sheni? But I always felt that this has in it a very important message to Baalei Teshuvah, those who are doing Teshuvah, those who are coming back to the roots. Imagine somebody coming back with Teshuvah at age 60, and he feels bad. Alright, for my sins I can bring a Korban when there will be a Bet HaMikdash. But what about all those missed opportunities, all those mitzvot and maasim tovim? For 60 years I was pursuing nonsense, and I missed out so much. And the Torah says, don't worry. Lo tigara, you will not be left out. You will be given another opportunity. From whenever it is that you come back with Shuvah, don't worry, you will be able to catch up. Pesach Sheni is a way to catch up. They missed the Pesach Rishon, they're given a second chance. What's the idea behind the second chance? That every Baal Teshuvah should not feel bad that he's missed out on so much. Of course, many years have gone by, you did stupidities, shtuyot, and you pursued all the vanities in the world, but Hashem says, you know what? You can start from now, and you will not be left out. I think that's a very important message. Another idea behind Pesach Sheni is Machshavat Tovah. The rabbis tell us, anybody who had a good thought, Bene'enas, and there was some accident, something happened to him and he couldn't do it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you know what, I give you credit for that machshavah. For the thought alone, even though a thought is never like a maaseh, some say that the meaning is HaKadosh Baruch Hu mitzarfa lemaaseh, he will add that thought to some other maaseh. Either way, you will get credit for your thought alone. Machshava ra'ah, bad thoughts Hashem does not punish for, unless it's machshava avodah zarah, thoughts about idol worshipping. But machshava tova, Kadosh Baruch Hu, because of His kindness to us, gives us much more credit for good thoughts. Why? Why is a good thought so powerful that we get credit even just for having thought about it? And for some reason, we couldn't carry out our plan. The reason is as follows. The rabbis tell us, L'olam yargiz adam yetzer tov al yetzer hara. One should always make an effort to defeat the yetzer hara by using the offensive, not the defensive. When you are on the offensive, your chances of winning are better. 6-day war, everybody remember? We went out on the offensive, and Baruch Hashem, Kadosh Baruch Hu helped us, and we won. If you are on the defensive, your chances are harder, because the enemy is already in, you're defending yourself. You should always go on the offensive to try to defeat the Yetzer Hara. Initiative, offensive, has the advantages of that you choose the time and place, and you have the ability to surprise the enemy. Now, what happens when a person has a machshava tova? In other words, that he went on the offensive. He had a good thought, he initiated something, and he was held back. He couldn't finish it. The Yetzer Hara might come and tell him, you know what, don't feel so bad. What's the big deal? You tried. No. The rabbis emphasize, you will get credit for that good thought. Remember, you will get credit for that good thought, because the fact that you had it, that you went on the initiative, is very powerful. Why is it so powerful? Because that means you started the war against the Yetzer Hara. You went out and began this war. Be careful now not to cool off and say, okay, I missed. No, what should you do instead? Titzta'er, feel bad. Kadosh Baruch Hu, how come I couldn't finish? Lama nigara. Why should we be left out? Why didn't you let me finish this beautiful mitzvah that I just began? This is the feeling that everybody should have when you attempted to do something good and you were left out. It's not only, no, that is why Hashem gives us credit for it, because this is very powerful. This is worth something. You're beginning the war, right? But more than the credit for it, be careful not to feel bad, not to cool off. This is a start. And if you try again, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help you. Therefore, if somebody missed the shiur tonight, all right, I couldn't do it, I couldn't make it, but it's only Wednesday night. No, tomorrow go to some other shiur, Thursday, and make up what you missed Wednesday. Don't say, okay, I missed out, I found, so what? It's not my fault. No, feel bad about it. Lama nigara. That is why they felt bad too. Why should we be left out of an opportunity to do a mitzvah? Be on the offensive. And if one has these thoughts in his mind, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu ya'azor lo lashlim, to complete whatever he left out. It's always important to be on the initiative, on the offensive. Hashem says, I'll give you credit for it. This is already an important step, but just make sure you don't cool off. And when it happens, that you are left out, feel bad about it. And if you feel bad about it, I will help you. I will help you the next time you will be able to complete it one way or another. That is why now we understand why Aaron felt bad. What does Aaron feel bad have to do with anything? Because it ties in to this other group who also feels bad. The Torah is teaching us an important lesson about feeling bad of not being able to do a mitzvah. This group felt bad, and so did Aaron. Aaron feels bad. Aaron, why should you feel bad? That you were left out of the Nesiim? For the same similar reason that this group that did not have the chance to do the Korban Pesach felt. Left out for not being able to do a mitzvah. That is the connection between these two groups, and that is why the Torah emphasizes this. Feeling bad about some mitzvah that you did not do is a very strong indicator that what an individual is doing is a Shem Shamayim. When we do a mitzvah, we have a choice. You can do it, as we said before, as a routine, without any kavanot, or you can do it really for the sake of Hashem Shamayim, the proper way of doing it. When one feels bad, he demonstrates that the mitzvah that he wants to do is Hashem Shamayim. It's an indicator. He really feels bad. That's the perfect way of performing a mitzvah. Like as the pasuk says, "Tame'an nafshi lelokai," I'm thirsty for Hashem, thirsty to do the will of Hashem. It shows that he is excited, he wants to, and he wants to do it for the real reason. I'll tell you a quick story with the Gaon of Vilna. In Lithuania, and even today, not just back then, it was very hard to get an etrog. It's a citrus fruit. It doesn't grow in Lithuania. Where did they get it from? Italy. It was very hard. There was one per community, and everybody made the beracha on it. And some years it was very hard to get, and whenever it was hard, it was very expensive. There was one individual who traveled, and he finally met up with a businessman who had an etrog. He says, please sell it to me. He says, no way, I will not sell it to you. I want it for myself. But you don't understand, this etrog will go for the Gaon of Vilna. Oh, really? That's different. But you know what? I have one condition. I'll sell it to you for the Gaon of Vilna, on condition that I get the reward for the mitzvah that he performs. So the guy felt bad, but he bought it anyway. He goes to the Gaon of Vilna. The Gaon of Vilna is very happy, and he sees that the guy is sad. The one who brought him the Torah. What are you sad about? Says, I didn't tell you, but the only way I could buy it is on condition that you don't get the reward for doing the mitzvah. He gets it. Baruch Hashem, you made my day. This is the happiest Sukkot of my life. I will once be able to perform a mitzvah l'shem shamayim, not for the reward, not in anticipation of fulfilling of the reward, but truly for the sake of Hashem. Thank you very, very much. You see, l'shem shamayim. The pasuk says, "Tov lagever sheisa ol b'neurav." It is a very good idea if you want to get your child used to assuming responsibilities, doing things for the right reason. Start him off young. Give him responsibility. Give him an ol b'neurav. Give him responsibilities when he's young. Because these responsibilities that we give children, sometimes we don't want to make it hard on them. But these are responsibilities that will make him more serious, more devoted, more dedicated to do this mitzvah. And hopefully, eventually, when he's older, it will remain with him. The time to start is when one is very, very young. Get him trained to doing things for the real reasons. Train him to become serious. Give him responsibilities. But something else will happen. When one does something for a long time, the commentaries explain that really the Kabbalah gets more into it. The body alone does it. In other words, a tzaddik who has purified himself, refined his character, done everything to do the will of Hashem for many, many years, later on in his life, because of doing it so long, his body knows to do the right thing. He goes wherever he needs to go. His hands do not hesitate anymore. It's second nature to him. The younger you start with a child, therefore, and give him these responsibilities, the easier it will be for him. Gam ki yaskin lo yasuru mimeno, Shlomo Melech says. Even when he will be older, he will not let go of it. Give him whatever you can. These responsibilities help build one's personality by making him more serious in realizing that this is something important. I want to finish with just another point. By the way, when Aaron was excited to do the Menorah, to light the Menorah, I think I saw this other explanation is because of his involvement with the Egel HaZahav, with the golden calf. Because he was involved there, he wanted to show excitement for lighting the Menorah. Sometimes there's an accusation against an individual when he shows excitement about vanities in life and does not show any excitement for fulfillment of mitzvot. He buys himself the most expensive furniture, but for Jewish education he doesn't spend a penny. At least let there be a balance. You like a good car, you want to have a Lexus, okay, then at least spend the same for mitzvot. Aaron here did it with tremendous itabu, with tremendous excitement, also because realizing that he had to be metaken to atone for what he did with the Egel. So, besides the bezrizut, he showed commitment and excitement. Rabbi Shlomo Miradomsk says about the words Lama Nigara, this group of people who felt so bad that they were left out. He says, imagine, this group of people felt so bad for missing out on a mitzvah, and because of the way they felt, Hashem gave Am Yisrael another mitzvah, Pesach Sheni. They were successful in convincing Hashem to giving them a second chance. Imagine if we pray to Hashem and beg Him, Lama Nigara, why hasn't Mashiach come? Why should our generation be left out? If we were to beg as much and feel so bad that He has not come, He would for sure come. For sure. We have to feel just as bad. Or there's another story with in the Chafetz Chaim. Once told a rabbi who was hesitating to take a job, 30,000 Jews are waiting for you. How could you let them down? He says, 30,000 Jews, I'm going. How could you let people down? Imagine if we were to tell Mashiach, how could you let everybody down? They're all waiting for you, 15 million Jews. But unfortunately, we don't have that courage to say that. But if everybody would be waiting a good amount, He would come. We have to show that we want this. The Malbim therefore says that is why one of the names of Mashiach is called Tzemach. What's Tzemach? Tzemach means a plant. A plant that has not grown yet. It's in the ground. But it can grow at any time. It can come out. It can sprout at any time. What does it depend on? TLC. Tender loving care. Just water it, treat it well, fertilize it, take care of it, and just show that you have an interest in it. And B'ezrat Hashem, we will all see it come out very, very soon.